What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Masculine Health Solutions Podcast. We discuss everything related to men's health and spiritual health, and sometimes finding that soulmate and what might actually look like. And today we're going to talk about perfect soulmates and what that kind of looks like. Kind of deconstruct that concept because I think a lot of people are missing the mark with that, especially in this day and age. And today we'll be talking to Benjamin Ramos, who's going to dive deep into that as he's written a book on it. And his expertise is what we're going to basically be picking your brain today, Benjamin. So first and foremost, how are you, man?
I'm excellent every single day. As an Army veteran, ever since I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, every day's a gift. Truly awakened to that.
Yeah, and I guess perspective kind of shifted after you see the opposite of love, which is probably a lot of hate, a lot of death, right?
Right, exactly.
But the first thing that I want to jump into, and I'm just going to ask you right off the bat, is what is a soulmate?
Yeah, Thank you so much for asking that because I just saw the other day a misconception. These guys are like, soulmates don't exist because how are you going to find one out of billions of people? And I said, no, you guys got it all wrong. A soulmate is somebody who's willing to go the distance, just like Rocky, go the distance. Like, is she the one that's going to level up with you? Literally, just like a video game, like reach the maximum level. There's no more. You guys just reach the ceiling. There's nowhere to go except for maybe just maintain it. So that's what perfection is, in my humble opinion. That's perfection does exist. Like, just really quickly, you ever seen a worm turn into a butterfly? Come on, that's
Yeah.
perfection. Crawling the earth and flying rapidly in the sky like nothing, like light as a feather. Like that is perfection, if you ask me. Or an airplane is safer than a car, like gets you point A to point B to point C, like no
Yeah.
accident, like engine's perfect, everything's perfect. When you have a perfect day, a perfect meal, it just a perfect love, it also exists. So yeah, so soulmates is somebody who's willing to go the distance with you and to the maximum. Anybody could be a candidate, but well, who's going to be the one who's going to go the distance, right?
Interesting. So would you say it wouldn't be so much a destiny thing? It's almost something that you work towards with the person that you're basically on this life journey with. Would you say that's more fair to
Yes.
say? It's like it's something built, not just like, oh, surprise, I'm here. you know?
Yes, yeah, you put it right. You nailed it right on the head because when they say in movies, "Hey, we're gonna make love," everybody cringes and like, "Oh no, they're just gonna have sex." No, you guys are literally making love by establishing a not just a physical connection, an emotional, mental, and spiritual, like a soul level connection. Eventually, not immediately. It's gonna take time, like everything. And I always tell people what I call the synchronization process is you're gonna have a lot of fights. You guys are gonna be a lot of disagreements, but what matters is, can you guys work through that? No compromising. You guys both get what you guys want in a relationship. That's the challenge. Don't give up anything for this and that because you're not going to be happy. So
Yeah.
that's another controversial thing with me is I don't believe in compromise. I believe in find a way to make it work. You ever heard a boss and a CEO said, "I don't care, you find a way to make it work." Well, love is the same way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it makes sense because when I view it from that perspective, and I lean towards that a lot more too, because I don't think things are just serendipitous at its inception. I don't think it's perfect right off the get go. It is something you got to work on. I've been married for 13 years, and it's like, dude, it's like you got to keep working on it. If not, it'll just fall apart. So to your point, it almost seems as though I think we may have lost track of that in the society, and I think a lot of people would be like, well, you know what? The window's broken, burn the house down. So instead of trying to fix the window per se, and would
Yep.
you would you think it's or you think it's fair to say that in this modern society that we live in, people just kind of may have married their soulmates and just kind of give up halfway along the way just because they can't make it fit or they can't work on these things together?
Absolutely. First of all, congratulations with your relationship. That's
Oh,
awesome.
thank you.
I just I just hit the 20-year mark, so we're very happy. But ever since we fell in love with each other, it was just like it was already forever, now and never. So,
Yeah.
but I will say this: I grew up playing with Legos. We had to be very creative with our minds. We had to create something, drawing and everything. Nowadays, it's just tapping on the Black Mirror screen and just everything's just being like fed to you on a silver platter. and you don't have to think as much. And so people take life for granted. They don't know what it's like to be a real creator and to really have there's no more philosophers out there. There's no more imagination and daring attitudes to create something that maybe it doesn't have to be something new that nobody's ever thought of, but maybe a better way of doing something or a better way of thinking, more productivity and positivity. There's anybody can be negative, anybody can be destructive, even
Mhm.
self-destructive, because there's a lot of suicide rates out there, depression, anxiety, all the negative emotions you can think of, negative thoughts. People say right off the bat, oh, well, soulmates don't exist, love doesn't exist. I'm like, you're never gonna know what it's like to feel the power of true love. And they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
right, that doesn't exist. I'm like, look, I can't help you. I can't help those who don't want to help themselves. So I gotta say that, that's what we're missing. That, like as you said, these future generations and even my generation, Generation X, I'm
Yeah.
like, what's become of us? Is this what we're gonna do? Is just de-evolve instead of evolve? We're going backwards. Am I the only one who believes that we should be going forwards?
I don't see that's the thing where I completely agree with you. And I think that I feel like a lot of people right now in this day and age, it's kind of weird because we do live in information overload, yet it feels like we're going backwards with a lot of things almost. Like a lot of people just don't know how to connect really and don't understand that human connection involves a lot of a little bit of strife at the get-go. It's not perfect at the onset. And I think that's one of these things that's missing in the society. It's going back to you were talking about building Lego. When you're first starting off building something, you can't even tell what it is. Then over time, it's like, okay, it starts to come together. And then at the end of it, where you're just putting the finishing touches on it, it looks spectacular. And I kind of feel like maybe at 20 years of being married, that's almost where you can look at it and everybody's like, oh, wow, it looks so easy. Well, it's like it's something we built together. It's not something that was just I didn't take it out the box and it was perfect. It was scrambled. It was all over the place. There was no organization needed to it, or there was nothing that was really making it look the way that I wanted until we started working on, until we started putting it together. And maybe to your point, you're right. I do feel like a lot of people just find, or maybe so many people are just so hurt. I think that it's easier for them to say that true love doesn't exist. Would you say it's more of a defense mechanism?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much because they give up on themselves and each other by, they get hurt, like you said, they get burned, and then so they get discouraged. And then
Mm-hmm.
so, it's the question of how deep is your love, not just for the art of love itself, and the art of perfection, but you don't feel like you deserve to be happy one day because I always tell people you can't be happy living alone. That's an illusion. That's
Mm-hmm.
living in denial. You need a partner by your side who loves you just as much as you love them, heart, mind, and soul, everything. You won't understand until you finally achieve it. And yes, you do have to, like, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? Everybody likes to say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but do you really do you feel it though? Not just understand it word for word. You have to apply that in life if you want to be take bodybuilding to sculpt the perfect
Mm-hmm.
body. That's going to take years. Reach sports achievement like that gold medalist in the gymnast Olympics. They're not going to get that gold medal unless you every single day you got to give it your max. You got to make perfect practice in order to have the perfect performance.
Yeah.
So that coach is going to be behind you saying, "Hey, this is the day of the competition. This is not a time to be slacking and thinking negatively. Like it's do or die." Right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. But so now going back to like actually constructing a good relationship and really building that with your soulmate, what's the first thing you think people need to address in a relationship?
The differences, I disagree with opposites attract. If it's big differences, careful. Like for example, I discourage dating. I don't believe in dating because there's too much acting going on. You're trying to be somebody you're not, pretending to be on your best behavior, whatnot. So, for example, my soulmate and we didn't even date, not once. All we did was we became friends, and then one thing started leading to another. I was like, wait, what is this? And then she stole a kiss from me one day. I said, of course you can steal a kiss from me. And then like after that, it was just like that oldie song, "It's in His Kiss." That's where it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my goodness, it was electric, and we just became like a partner. We were partners from that point on. Not one date. And so I'm telling people, look, it's what I call the synchronization process. You're gonna have disagreements, but as long as they're not going to be too big, and as long as the arguments don't get physical, they don't get too insulting. If you guys lose it here and there, look, can you forgive each other? Can you move on?
Mhm.
But if there's any cheating involved, it's over. That's the kill switch right there. It's done, in my humble opinion, because it's scarred for life. You will not be able to recover from that, in my
Mhm.
humble opinion. And also physical abuse. If there's any form of physical abuse or shouting at each other, like the most disgusting things you can possibly think of, that's verbal abuse. It's gonna stay in your minds. It's already ruined. Like, you tore the canvas, you can't paint over that. The canvas itself is torn. There's a point of no return. There's things that are simply unforgivable. So that's my advice to people: is be very careful. It requires patience, tenacity, understanding, respect, wisdom, intelligence. The list goes on. So, it's not about how much you can take, it's about how much are you guys constructing together, because there's three people in a relationship, I always say. There's you, your partner, and what you guys are creating together. That's your
Mhm.
baby right there.
Yeah, well, I think it's 100% true. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Granted, I think that now it seems like, what would you recommend for young kids coming up? Because it seems like they don't really date anymore, period. And from what I read, statistically speaking, it seems as though a lot of them are just kind of, staying at home. They're not really getting out there. What would you recommend for them to kind of, find themselves wives and husbands and that?
That's a perfect question there, because fear. They have too much fear. They lack courage, commitment. There's a lot of fear. So, like we said before in the beginning, once they get burned, they might stay alone forever and live at home with a dog or a cat, for both men and women. And that's very
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate, because they just give up so early. You guys are so beautiful. You guys have so much potential, and you're going to give up so early. What is that? I mean, they won't give up on playing video games or watching movies, but you're going to give up on the
Yeah.
most beautiful thing in life. Like, so how deep is your love, right? My advice to the young people out there is be very careful who you listen to. Don't rush things. You have to understand that you need to become best friends first. And
Mm-hmm.
if you guys are blown away by that and you think that's too much, you're not ready for a serious lifelong commitment. I'm sorry. You need to establish, like, seriously, with the opposite sex. Don't be afraid. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so for guys out there, you're gonna go talk to a girl. You shouldn't be scared of that. You can be
Yeah.
shy a little bit, but being shy, I have a video on my YouTube channel. Shyness is weakness, stop being so shy, because a real woman wants a strong man, and a real man wants a strong woman. You guys got to be two warriors, king and queen. Earn the respect amongst you guys. So you guys got to build that trust and respect by having a sense of honor and strength. And I know this sounds kind of vague, a little basic, but we can get into really like surgical details if you want.
No, I want to go into that because I feel like that dynamic is really what's missing in the society. And that's one of the things that I did name this podcast Masculine Health Solutions, because it's a place for guys to really figure this out. And I think even that has been taken out of context. People have just looked at masculinity as a negative or toxic thing. And I think I'm like, no, fuck you. It's not a bad thing. Like, it's a part of who we are as men. And I think in order for me to have a successful relationship with my wife, I got to provide, I got to protect, and I got to start progressing as a man. Like, I think those are the three pillars of masculinity. And I think that that's what's needed out of the dude in the relationship. I think, because I'm a big believer in that masculine and feminine coming together to create something beautiful, right? And I think out of that comes children, comes everything else that exists in this world. It's kind of like the divine balance, like that beautiful dance between the two sexes, right? And for me, it's kind of, I firmly believe that we need strong men in order to take care of our woman. Like, I do believe that. And I would love to get your opinion on what that looks like for you, and what kind of traits a man should have in a relationship.
Yeah, no, you're correct. Strong man in a relationship and a strong woman. See, I always put the woman first, because I think women, non-toxic women. I
Mm-hmm.
always say there's toxic females and toxic males. I do what's called a ranking system. I don't know if I can patent it, but I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to say many people do this already. Like, when we say a real man, a real woman, I take it further and I say, should I even call you a man or a woman? Are you living up to that title? Did you earn
Mm-hmm.
that rank? Just like in the military, do you deserve that rank on your chest? Because even a human being committing evil acts, you don't deserve to be called human. You're like a demon, an evil spirit or something. You're a monster. You're
Yeah,
something else. I'm not
yeah,
going to call you a human being. That's not humane, the definition of being human. So, that's what I would say is learn to earn that rank, that title, because they're going to respect you, you're going to respect them, and so it requires strength and maturity. That's the word right there I'm looking for. Maturity. You guys have to have a mature relationship because maturity is all about constantly learning, and there's the intelligence and wisdom factor as well. But like I said, detail wise, that's what I think a lot of younger people are lacking is they're dealing with so many toxic females and males, and they're calling them
hmm
men and women. I'm like, those are not real men and women, please. And then they engage in what I call the gender war, which is they just start talking about the opposite sex to no end, wasting their time, wasting their life. Like, oh, they're just a bunch of this and men this and women that. Are you guys serious? You guys want to waste your whole life complaining instead of searching? Because that's the easy way out, right? Let me
yeah,
just complain. It's just like the video game. You lose, right? What do? You press continue or you say end, right?
yeah,
Is it
exactly.
over? Are you serious? Or are you gonna press that continue? Like, don't stop because eventually you will succeed. It's like anything else, right?
hmm Yeah, and to your point, I think I don't know if maybe these gender wars are constructed by I don't know some evil hand or something, but I think it's very strange the way it's all been kind of fabricated and brought to reality in our day to day lives. Because I'm like, 20 years ago, we weren't talking about this stuff. Like a lot of the things that we hear about now, I find just number one, they don't make sense, and number two, it's like, where did this come from? Whose idea was this?
Yeah.
And who says that this is the way that we should act because I don't know, it's like some social justice thing. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But going back to the more positive side of things, when it comes to being the dude in the relationship, what is the perfect man or how does a man contribute positively to the relationship to ensure that he can be the perfect soulmate for his partner?
Yeah, from the man's perspective, that's interesting. You have to be in touch with your feminine side. I know men are gonna cringe when I say that, but don't cringe, guys. I'm serious because you can't go into a relationship with this macho attitude, like I'm the guy and what I say goes, and this is my house, and I'm like, that's the quickest way to get your woman to really just eventually hate you and want to
hmm
abandon ship. And then what's worse is if you guys bring either planned or unplanned parenthood with kids, unwanted kids or not, then they're gonna end up suffering because you're trying to play this persona, this tough guy attitude when all she ever wanted was just somebody to really love. And then be careful because there's toxic women, toxic females out there too, and they're like, well, I don't like roses. Don't give me roses, or don't open the door for me. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
this
yeah. It's like I'm
I,
strong.
I call them feminist extremists because I'm okay with feminism and masculinity. That's fine. That's exactly what you said. We used to have that, and there was no problems. Nowadays, it's an exaggeration, taking it to the extreme, and it's just like a religious extremist, for example, trying to push their religion on you. I'm like, look, I respect your religion, but I don't have a religion. Can you respect my viewpoint, please? But
Yeah,
they just they get aggressive. They want to try to control and manipulate you and insult you, and I'm like, I think we don't have anything here. There's no so what you were saying before, yes, I believe it is an agenda. Some people call it eugenics or depopulation, or I hate to go into the what they call conspiracy theories, but there's something in there. I will say it's
yeah,
called social engineering, and I'll just leave it at that because these days it's illegal to even talk about those things.
yeah. It's kind of one of the difficult things. But I mean, I honestly do feel like it's been brought to our reality, even though it shouldn't, because I don't really believe in a lot of the stuff that they're trying to put out there. But going back to the
Exactly.
soulmate side of things, when it comes down to it, like as far as being the perfect soulmate for your significant other and stuff, what are the day to day actions? What does that kind of look like in from your perspective? Because we talked a little bit more about the social side of things and all those different factors that are involved. But when it comes to the day to day, because I kind of want to get into like more of the nuance side of things. What does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah, so let's say you're a hard worker and you're the main provider, the sole provider. Maybe not a dual working relationship, but even in dual working relationships, the same is going to apply to both of you guys. So whoever's doing the working, you got to have the strength to come home and say, okay, I have chores to accomplish, I have projects to work on, and I have to listen to how your day was, and you have to listen to how my day was, because that's our connection. We're not going to put ourselves last. You have to be the handyman. She has to be not necessarily the house lady, which is called a stay-at-home mom, like cooking and
Yeah.
cleaning. I believe that a real man knows how to cook and knows how to clean, has no shame at all washing the toilet or the bathroom or cleaning out the garage and doing spring cleaning. No, how about all year cleaning so that way it doesn't accumulate? Be responsible, take action, be useful. Don't just plop yourself down on the sofa after a hard day's work and be like, well, it's football time, it's baseball time. Like those are like the old days where the housewife was doing all this work and even caring for the kids and helping with their homework and everything. Well, I was out working all day, so that's your job. Excuse me,
Yeah.
that's your children too. So now you're estranging them by ignoring them. It's kind of like neglect at that point. It's like those are your kids too. My
Yeah.
father, for example, he worked hard, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She was a housewife. And I always respected the housewife because I saw how much work she put into it. She wasn't a lazy housewife. She worked on the garden, cleaning the house from the outside, the inside, and laundry, cooking. You name it, everything she did, right? And she always
Yeah.
pushed us to hustle, hustle, hustle as little kids and clean stuff up and help her get helping hand. But when my dad gets home, he does absolutely nothing, and he doesn't even care how anybody's day went. I'm like, that's a macho loser right there, and I can tell you that because I was excommunicated from my family for religious purposes, but that's another story. Um, I was a perfect kid, I believe. They were great parents at one point in the beginning, but it just started going downhill because, like I said, how deep is your love? Can you do this every single day for an
Hmm.
entire lifetime? They had 4 kids, and I believe that's way too many kids. That's too much responsibility. Maybe they just they couldn't handle it.
Yeah. It's a lot of work, but I think you are right. It is a day to day that kind of builds on the promising future, and that's kind of the I think one of the different factors because there's a lot of different things that kind of come into play, but like from what I'm getting more than anything, dude, it seems as though to build that perfect soulmate, that perfect relationship, it just comes down to the work you're willing to put in. It's almost like an effort thing. Do you think that's fair to say, or?
Yeah. Yes, actually, like it's easy to just right off the bat say, "Yeah, right, perfection doesn't exist. You're high on something, bro." And I'm like, "Hold on I'm like, "Hold on a second. Can you just give me a chance to explain? Like your ADHD is really shining here, buddy."
Yeah,
All I'm saying is the art of perfection is like anything else. It's a constant status. It's a constant state of perfecting things. So whether or not you ultimately reach what you choose to call perfection, what meaning this is the perfect life for you. This is the perfect life for me. My perfect life might not be your perfect life, right? It's all about preference and the strong desire to have either what I have or what you want to have that I don't want to have what you have. We're all different, right? So
yeah,
what I mean by perfection is, well, work on it, man. Yes, you can achieve your dreams, and she can too, yet your partner. It's not just your dreams, it's also her dreams, right? So the synchronization process is all about, okay, we're gonna have to find a way to make this work. Your fantasies, my fantasies. We have a busy lifestyle. The economy is always going to be bad. No excuses. That's in my book too, as I always write.
mhm,
There's no excuses, a bodyguard mentality, wisdom, intelligence, all that other stuff. But it's all about passion and attitude. If you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to get anywhere.
yeah. So, in regards to that, you mentioned attitude. How important is that?
Oh, that's the difference between a happy, positive life and a depressing, mediocre, negative lifestyle. It's everything. It's everything because anybody can have, for example, a relationship or have sex just to have sex, orgasm, okay, big deal. Let's go watch Netflix and chill. That doesn't mean anything. Passion is did we have a saying in Spanish is el amor mueve montañas, which is love moves mountains. I want to feel my mountain move, okay?
Yeah,
Because it's all about what I call establishing, creating unforgettable memories together. Can you do that? Like pretty much on a daily basis. There are going to be days when you guys can't really create that. I understand. But how many of them can you create? It's not a competition. Just let it happen naturally. How deep is your love, right? So what I'm saying is it's every day is an opportunity to make it happen to create unforgettable life experiences to where you can honestly look at your soulmate in the eyes and say, in the future, and say, you remember that time when this and that? It's not just a handful of memories. It's we did that so many times, and it's always the same enjoyment experience. Nothing ever gets old, in other words. That's how
Mhm.
you know that you're truly in love together, is you can see you can do this forever if you were immortal. That's what true love is. I hear people sadly say, I could never be with my partner all day. We would get tired of each other and we'd argue. Then you're not in love, man. You guys got to work on that. That's unacceptable, man.
Mhm. So it almost seems like it's like a never ending. It is. It's a constant. I wouldn't say battle. I'd say it's more of a constant building together, almost. But in your life, and I guess in your journey, what's been the toughest thing for you to overcome?
The maturity factor, because she was I was a wise guy, but I grew up with a sarcastic family, so our humor didn't really add up. I got this classic American humor, and she's got more of this traditional type humor, and I was like, okay, so I gotta synchronize with you on what you find offensive and what you find actually funny. So she kind of taught me in that regards to, hey, take it easy with the jokes, right? Like, I know
Yeah.
you're not trying to insult me, but it is coming across as sarcastic. That's not your intent, but I gotta warn you that people can take this the wrong way. So she taught me how to be more aware of myself and how I can not, how I carry myself, how I conduct myself. I was always, it's a learning process. So being in love with somebody who really cares about you, you learn from each other, because
Mhm.
she learned a lot about how to think more open-mindedly and not just come to a quick conclusion. Don't be so impulsive either when you're going out window shopping. Okay, did you save enough money for that? Is this something you really want, or are you gonna end up returning it like a lot of women do, like regretting
Yeah.
their purchase or something? But it's more than, it's not just materialism. It applies to everything. Be careful how you say things, what you say, choose your words carefully, your thoughts even, because they can be either self-destructive or, is that really what you think about me? That's not true. Let me explain. You guys got to clear everything up. You got to, it's more than crossing the T's and dotting the I's. I mean, I'm talking about like on a surgical level, like I said before, a magnifying glass, everything's got to be, that's what perfection is. You guys, it's just like when you're downloading something, it goes bit by bit, like, fragmented, it's all these little fragments that adds up to, that's what we call them, bits, right? I'm not
Yeah.
going to get all geeky about it, but just like anything, how was it made? How does it really work? Understanding how love works is, I think that's the biggest obstacle for most people.
100%. And I think it's it's that nuance factor that really plays into anybody being successful in anything pretty much, because I feel like when you really deconstruct it from that perspective, you really start to look at those small tiny things that may be either helping to contribute in a positive way or might be breaking things up. And if you don't look at it, and if you don't get down to the microscopic, it almost seems like, huh, okay, we're focusing on the macro, but we got some micro issues we definitely got to look into. And to your point, I find that interesting, where it's kind of like, it's interesting because I think it's a real thing that happens for a lot of us. It's almost like, hey, I got to get used to the fact that the way you view humor and the way I do is completely different, and what I'm doing might be offensive, and maybe that's where I need to work on myself and let go of certain things and start to adapt. Because I do find that the concept you come back to again and again is synchronization. What was it that really led to you realizing that this is one of those key concepts that you need to have a successful relationship? Because it's, I don't know if you stumbled across it or if you just kind of realized it, or I don't know how this came about, but now I'm kind of interested to hear how you really mastered this process. Because to write an 800 like page book on this, like, I don't know how this came about, but what led to you really discovering that, hey, wait a minute, like light bulb moment, synchronicity, I got to make this work with this person.
Well, for example, I'm a martial artist now for 30 years, and I there was this part in like the movie Mortal Kombat where I'm serious. I'm just being honest. When I was a teenager, this came all the way back from when I was a teenager studying about love at the age of 13, by the way.
Wow.
I can explain more about that later, but pretty much Johnny Cage said to Goro, "Let's dance," right? Or in the beginning, "Let's dance." And I thought, okay, so fighting is like a dance. And then Bruce Lee started saying that too when I watched his movies and everything, kung fu flicks. And so I said, you know what, love is like a dance too, isn't it? So it's like, what's going on here? And I thought about, what goes on behind of a watch, the face of a watch. There's all these little cog wheels and everything has to be perfectly synchronized. Otherwise, it's not going to tell the correct time at all. By the second, by the millisecond, every single millisecond counts, because if not, it's the wrong time, and that's not acceptable, right? That's just the wrong time. And even digital clocks, there's all these electronical pieces and, firing this wire and this wire, but it's not just a wire, it's a wire within a wire and a wire. So it's almost like a matrix type concept. So I said, you know what, one word actually summarizes this, and I call it synchronization. So when you go to the like one of those Olympic, I don't know if it's in the Olympics, but when you look at a pool and a bunch of participants, the athletes are in the water and they all do, or a dance, that's better.
Yeah, synchronized swimming.
Like there's 12 people, usually Chinese, because they're so great at it. I don't know how they do this, but there's other nations. There's other nations too, obviously. But I saw these like Chinese dancers once in the performance, and I couldn't see not one of them do one false move, not even one split second. I said, how is that possible? How come we can achieve such a feat of perfection, but yet we can fail so hard with just one team player, your partner, so bad, so detrimental, and yet these people are accomplishing this. Like somebody invented the phone, for crying out loud, and that created the internet and so forth. And then the wheel itself, like you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but how can you mess up so bad with just one team player, your partner, and yet you're so capable of doing these amazing feats of performance at the same time?
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to me. So synchronization, right?
Yeah, that's funny too. It's kind of like going back to Mortal Kombat. I'm like, that's hilarious, but it's the truth.
Right. Yeah.
So how these things kind of work out.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat is when playing the video game is what led me into martial arts. And my father, he practiced Taekwondo and Karate. And so he had these big books to just throw at me. He didn't really teach me. He just had me learn from the books and movies. And he just didn't care. He was like, well, here's some books, kid. And I was like, oh, thanks a lot. And then from there, I became a really good martial artist. I was like, wow, I love this. So I did the splits and high kicks, and I'm not even a black belt, and I'm like, wow, okay. And then karate and some kung fu moves, and you can learn a lot by, it's not just a movie. Like I for example, that movie Ninja Assassin. This has everything to do, by the way. People see the movie Ninja Assassin as some bloody movie where ninjas are killing these SWAT, German SWAT people. And no. Look past all that. Look past the movie The Matrix, all the action and killing. Neo loves Trinity, and Trinity falls in love with Neo, right? So it's like the same thing with Ninja Assassin. You have Mika and the main character, Raizo. It's a love story at the end. He literally carries out of the burning building, and you guys got to pay attention. Life is not about the battles that we fight and the war that never ends, the struggle. It's about who's in your arms. Who are you carrying away from the fire? Like, can you carry each other away? Can you back up your partner when they're not there? Can you both take the leadership role? In other words, can you both be ninja assassins, or like Neo in the Matrix or Trinity? You guys got to both be superheroes. Like, what is it, Wonder Woman and Superman? You guys gotta. That stuff is serious. It's not just some cartoon or comic book or movie. Like, there's lessons to be learned there. Apply into your life.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's one of the big underlying things that we all got to pay attention to, man, is that love is kind of one of these big things that everybody at the end of the day is looking for and everybody wants, but for some reason it's kind of like we complicate things, and we don't give it the respect it needs, I guess. But the one thing I want to go over as well, while I got you here, is let's go over your book, man. Like, what are some of the concepts that you dive into in your book that we haven't discussed here?
Oh, wow. Well, I'll go ahead and spoil it, because everybody loves this part. Is they expect a Disney level book. I'm like, no. I'm sorry, but there's no curse words.
Yeah,
it's very professionally written. It's all about my philosophy on love itself. So there's over 120 topics. There's no chapters. Nothing's boring. It's just boom, 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 just like an index. It's love, wisdom, intelligence, traveling, and kids, and marriage and dating. Everything is just categorical, and you just read. Every single word in this book was meticulously created, and it was edited over 4 times by myself. That's what I believe in, perfection. Nothing can be messed up. I'm not trying to waste anybody's time with this book. This book is I couldn't put it down myself, and that's not just because I wrote it. I'm not trying to promote it like, hey, because I wrote it. No, my soulmate couldn't put it down, and she hates reading books. And she said, this is the only book in my life. Again, not just because I wrote it. It's because you put so much passion into this book, and it's so knowledgeable. It's so much wisdom that she couldn't put it down. She had to put it down because she had to go to sleep and then continue reading the next day. But I mean, I was like, it is, isn't it? And I told her, I don't think I can do this again. It's just lightning in a bottle. So what I'm talking about in the book are things like there's a big sexual part, and towards the end as a reward if you gotten this far, hey, look, everything you want to, the main points about sex toys or BDSM, I'm going to go over it, and I get very specific. I'm going to tell you, and but believe it, there's things in that area of the book that I'm sure nobody's ever told you before, and I'm not exaggerating, and that's what I take great pride in. I'm still waiting for that person to come up to me online or offline and say, "Can we talk about that a little bit more? You just said this about this and that." I don't want to spoil it, but that would be such an honor for somebody to have paid that much attention to the sexual part of my book, because people shy away from that. They don't want to talk about sex, like the song says, right? Let's talk about sex, baby. People these
Yeah.
days they run away as soon as they hear the word sex or sexual or sensual or erotic, and I'm like, why are you running away from it? That's exactly why your relationships are failing. It's you can have sex easily, but do you really understand it? There's a lot more to it than just doing the deed. It's that's
Yeah. Well, when it comes to sex, like what does it look like to have good sex with your soulmate versus like when it's not there? Because we mentioned synchronicity, and this kind of plays hand in hand with that as well. And I kind of find that I think it's something that you're right, probably gets left out for, people just feeling uncomfortable with it and don't want to talk about it so much. But when it comes down to it, if you're doing it right with your soulmate, what does that kind of look like?
right. So, and, pornography itself exists for a reason, because people, they have fetishes, they have
Mhm.
gustos. There's a lot of things, and it doesn't matter if you've ever seen pornography or not, if your partner or not. It's just a tool. People really take it out of context. Look, it's just a tool that you can learn from, a visual tool. Like the Kama Sutra, for crying out loud, came out what, centuries ago, and it's pretty much, it shows you a little bit of what they're talking about. So don't blame pornography. That was their pornography back then. There's even sculptures and sculptures of all these sexual acts and orgies. And so, look, I had nothing to do with that. I'm just saying, if you want to learn from it, learn from it. What it looks like and everything, but how it feels and everything. That's what we're talking about here. She has to have everything that she's looking for, and but realistic. I mean, I'm not talking about, well, you have to have this many inches. No, that's immature. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous. That's just like, don't, you have to be over 6 feet tall, six pack abs, and six-figure income. That's toxic. That's highly immature. That's garbage. Okay. You need somebody who's going to be like, wow, that was good. Hey, do you think we can make it better if we try this, and be explorative, right? Sexually and also erotically, like how you behave during sex is being erotic, right? Can you arouse your partner in ways that they've never been aroused before? And it has to be something that they can't do alone through masturbation, for example. There's nothing wrong with that either. Just the only thing that's wrong with pornography and masturbation, because they still talking about it to this day, is being addicted to it. Like I always advise, don't have more than one orgasm a day, maybe two max if it's a celebration. Because for the man, you have to recuperate hormonally, with your vitamins and minerals. It's a nutritional aspect too. You have to rest even more, because whether you're younger or older, it doesn't matter. It takes a big toll on the man, especially. And for women, don't abuse your clitoris or the orgasm after orgasm. Like, don't abuse it. You know, it's fine if girls can probably have two a day, because there's no erection process or whatnot. But be careful with these vibrators and everything, because you're desensitizing your private parts, right? Your nether region, genitals. Treat it with some respect. Like, it's okay to use these toys and everything, but don't rely on that for pleasure, because you have to be able to get off, like, your orgasm and pleasure with your guy, beyond that level. Because if you think that you can, and you say, no, I need my toys, it's not going to work. It's not gonna
Yeah.
work. Like, you're not being grateful. You're not really in love with that person. You should be able to have everything you could possibly need and want with that person and not have to rely on anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with that 100% as well. But do you find that a lot of women now are relying on that, or is that something that's become more popular? I mean, shit, I'm like, I wouldn't know.
Right.
Because, I've been out of the loop, but
It's yeah, it comes back to the topic of maturity. The question is, how mature are these females out there? Do you deserve to be called a woman, based on how intelligent you are, how wise you are? Because if you're just treating sex as sex and nothing more, whether you have a body, to have sex with, or no body to have sex with, what does it mean to you? Do you respect yourself enough to say, you know, uh, to have some dignity and say, okay, sex is a pleasure, but having a partner by my side, that's what I really want, because
Mhm.
that's something toys can never give me. That's the problem with a lot of these women nowadays. I'll say women just to ease up a little bit on the throttle. But, there's a lot of immaturity, right? And also with the men, they just want to, get into the woman's skirt and, that's it. And then say, okay, I banged her, and I'm, like trophies, it's just so disgusting. It's like immature. And then with the women, they're like, it's not exactly the same. They're kind of like saying more, like they're starting to use men, just like men used to use women in the black and white days. Kind of sort of. There's always
Mhm.
going to be a bad part. Like, you're not going to find a rose in the desert all the time, or a diamond in the rough. Like, this is what's typically expected, is immaturity when it comes to sex and love, because it's a lot to understand. It's a lot to really fulfill for yourself and for your partner. Like I say, like synchronizing sexually and emotionally and mentally, and then eventually on a spiritual level. It's, you got to respect the art of sex itself. There's so much more than what you think going on.
Yeah. And especially the other thing I want to dive into now from your perspective, just because you mentioned the spiritual side of things, what does sex kind of involve as far as spiritual connection from your perspective?
Right. So when I say spiritual, I mean deep emotions, because I'm not religious at all, but I do
Hmm.
believe that something created everybody, but that's just the mystery of life, is what I call it. So
Okay.
but spiritually, what I say is that I believe we do have a soul, and hence the term soulmates. And so the mating of the souls, you're not going to experience that right away. It's going to feel like body on body, because you're trying to get to know each other mentally and emotionally on a basic level. Eventually, that's why it's making love, because you're reaching new heights. It's not just pleasure. That's
Yeah.
why people say, "Oh, it's just carnal pleasure. It's nothing." No, 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 no. You're missing the whole point. It's just like you develop a relationship. If you have a child, for example, yeah, it's a baby, right? But as they grow up, you start getting more and more connected. Like, oh my goodness, that's my son, that's my daughter. I would die for them. I'd get everything for them. I love them no matter what. You see, that wasn't there when you had the baby. You have to get to know them and really train them, teach them. You have to be a good listener to see what it is that they need, maybe what's wrong, help them get through challenges and obstacles. And so the relationship's the same way. Is the soulmate connection is not going to happen right away. That's why I told you in the beginning that soulmates right off the bat, they don't exist. A
Yeah.
soulmate is somebody who went the distance all the way to the finish line and beyond. They're still there by your side. No doubts, no arguments, no fear. They're there just like a female warrior, and you're the male warrior. And I mean, if you don't have that warrior mindset, is what I call it, and she doesn't either, you guys going to be opened up for damage to the relationship and potentially fail one day. I mean, it's got to be strong beyond belief.
That's a perfect way to segue out of this episode. Kind of going back to that, but it's to me it makes sense because the concepts to me are solid, and I honestly like legit Benjamin. The way I kind of see it is it's a very similar philosophy to the one that I have, and obviously I think
Mhm.
that it's one that sometimes we do need to extrapolate and discuss these things just so more people can understand what you mean by it, and kind of get these concepts brought to the light because I think there's a lot of truth there, and ultimately it just kind of comes down to that. It's an uncomfortable truth, but it's the truth, and I find that I'm in agreement with a lot of the different concepts that you brought up today. But before you take off, man, let us know where can we find your books, where the content, all that good stuff. Where can we get in touch with you if anybody listening to the show wants to learn more?
Right. So I'm on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn even, and then Pinterest even. So, but my main central headquarters is YouTube because that's where I
Okay.
can express myself. I have shows which are live streams. I already did 100 episodes in 10 different series.
Wow.
So please check out the playlist on my channel. And then the latest one is called The Perfect Soulmate Show. I'm already hitting 40 total episodes. It's been going on a little bit. But now I'm going to be adding, once we hit the 50th one, I'm going to introduce a case by case show. It's going to be a real banger because I'm going to bring in some extreme cases of difficult relationships. And like I said, very specific cases instead of the broader shows that I'm presenting on a more professor, teaching students. I'm going to go more like very specific, very exciting. So look forward to that. And yeah, my book and my 1 hour video course. I used to have them for a cheaper price, but honestly, I spent almost 1,000 hours on both of these, what I call masterpieces, and you can learn so much from them.
Hmm.
So do respect the price, please, because I'm still compared to everything, that's nothing, in terms
Yeah.
of. But everybody who's bought either it's yours to own forever, by the way. The 1 hour video course or the book, I had no complaints whatsoever. Everybody's highly satisfied, so I'm very proud of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm got your YouTube video opened up right here, and I'll be sure to put all the links in the description. And again, thank you for your time, Benjamin. Thank you for coming on the show. It's a blast talking to you. Learned a lot, man. And yeah, just gonna make sure that all the links are there so anybody can contact you if they want to.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, don't be shy out there. You can email me too. It's all right there.
All right, perfect. We'll see you guys in the next episode.